My daughter looked her future in-laws in the eye and said, I embarrass her because I sound like an immigrant. My name is Stephen Johnson, but everyone calls me Steve. For 26 years, I'd been sending Donna $8,000 every month so she could live like a princess. Private schools, luxury cars, Yale University tuition. I paid for everything while she learned to be ashamed of the accent that built her empire. But when she told Blake Morrison's wealthy parents that I never quite assimilated properly, she had no idea who she was really talking about. See, the Morrison family thinks they know exactly what kind of man I am. Small-time immigrant, lucky at best, definitely not their social equal. But assumptions can be dangerous things, especially when you're making them about someone whose true position you've never bothered to discover. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just pulled out my phone and made one decision that would teach my daughter the true cost of shame. You know what happens when entitled people underestimate the wrong person? They learn expensive lessons. And if you stick around to the end, you'll see exactly what I mean. I'd love to hear your thoughts on family respect. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. This is the story of how my daughter discovered that the embarrassing immigrant she was ashamed of had more power than she ever imagined. Let me start from the beginning. I came to America in 1991 as a 19-year-old refugee with $200 and a dream. Today, I own Johnson Properties, a 23-building portfolio worth $2.4 million. But to my daughter Donna and her new fiancé's family, I'm just the guy with the funny accent who somehow got lucky. The signs were everywhere, but I chose to ignore them. First sign, 3 weeks before the engagement party, Donna's fiancé Blake Morrison III asked me, "What exactly do you do, Stefan?" We were having dinner at their favorite restaurant, a place that charges $45 for a steak. I'd been paying for these dinners for months. I told him I'm in real estate development. He nodded politely, but I saw that look, the one that says strip malls and rental properties. Blake comes from old money. His family owns Morrison Holdings, generations of wealth built on investments and inheritance. They live in a penthouse downtown, drive matching Range Rovers, and vacation in the Hamptons every summer. To them, I'm nouveau riche at best. More likely, I'm just some immigrant who got lucky flipping houses. The second sign hurt more because it came from Donna herself. The night before the engagement party, she called me with specific instructions. "Dad, when Blake's parents ask what you do, just say real estate. Don't mention the refugee thing, and please watch your accent. Sometimes it gets thick when you're nervous." I've been sending Donna $8,200 every month for the past 4 years. That's $98,400 annually. Her rent, her car payment, her shopping, her dinners out, all covered. She graduated from Yale debt-free because I paid $280,000 in tuition over 4 years. She drives a BMW that I bought her for graduation. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in the trendy part of town that costs $3,000 a month. But somehow, I'm the embarrassment. I should have seen this coming. Donna grew up American. She went to private schools where she was the only kid whose dad had an accent. She learned early that being different wasn't an advantage. When she was 12, she asked me to drive her to school, events in my Honda instead of my work truck. When she was 16, she stopped bringing friends over because our house wasn't big enough. When she graduated college, she introduced me to her friends as my dad, the businessman. Never my dad who came here with nothing and built everything we have. Never my dad who worked 16-hour days so I could have opportunities he never had. Just the businessman. Generic. Safe. Forgettable. The truth is, Donna doesn't know my real story. She knows I came from Europe, but she doesn't know I lived in a refugee camp for 8 months. She knows I started a construction business, but she doesn't know I spent my first 3 years in America sleeping in my truck between job sites. She knows we're comfortable now, but she doesn't know I still keep my first toolbox in my office as a reminder. I never told her these details because I wanted her to feel secure. I wanted her to grow up American, confident, without the weight of my struggles. I thought if I just provided enough, if I just said yes to everything, she'd naturally develop respect for what we built together. I was wrong. Standing in that restaurant, watching Blake's dismissive nod, listening to my daughter coach me on how to hide my heritage, I realized I'd created a monster. Not a bad person. Donna isn't cruel by nature, but someone who'd never learned to value struggle, sacrifice, or the hands that built her privilege. The engagement party was going to be my test. Would Donna stand by her family, or would she choose the comfort of fitting in with people who would never truly accept us? I was about to find out. If I stayed quiet and let Donna's shame continue, I wouldn't just lose my self-respect. I'd lose my daughter forever. Here's what was really at stake. Donna was about to marry into a family that saw us as beneath them. If I didn't establish boundaries now, I'd spend the rest of my life pretending to be someone I'm not. Worse, I'd be teaching Donna that our heritage is something to hide, that success means abandoning where you came from. Let me show you the numbers. Over the past year alone, I'd transferred exactly $98,400 to Donna's accounts. I pulled up my banking app and scrolled through the monthly payments. $8,200 every 15th of the month, like clockwork. Rent, car payment, insurance, shopping allowance, dining budget, everything covered. But the real number that haunted me was $180,000. That's what I'd promised to put down for Donna and Blake's condo purchase. The paperwork was already in motion. I'd even pre-approved the wire transfer for closing day, scheduled for July 1st. Beyond the money, there was something deeper at stake. Donna had a job interview lined up at Johnson Properties for next month. I'd been planning to bring her into the family business, teach her everything I'd learned about real estate development. It was going to be her entry into building something meaningful instead of just spending money I'd earned. If I let this slide, what message was I sending? That disrespect has no consequences? That family loyalty goes only one direction? That the man who built everything she enjoys should apologize for his accent? I thought about my father, who died before he could see America. He was a skilled carpenter who dreamed of starting his own construction business. Stefan, he told me in the hospital, if you make it to America, you build something that lasts. You build something our name can be proud of. I'd built Johnson Properties to honor that promise. Every building, every successful project, every new contract was proof that the Stefanovich name meant quality and integrity. But if my own daughter was ashamed of that name, ashamed of the accent that came with it, what was I really building? The stakes were generational. If I stayed silent, Donna would raise her children to be ashamed of their grandfather's immigrant story. They'd grow up thinking success means erasing your past, not honoring it. I'd also be betraying every other immigrant parent who worked multiple jobs, learned a new language, and sacrificed their comfort so their kids could have better opportunities. We don't earn respect by hiding who we are. We earn it by being proud of how far we've come. The engagement party wasn't just about one evening. It was about defining what our family would stand for. I wasn't going to fail that test. The Riverside Country Club sits on 40 acres of perfectly manicured golf course, 20 minutes outside the city. Membership costs $15,000 a year, plus a $25,000 initiation fee. I became a founding member in 2018 when they expanded their facilities. Tonight, the Morrison family had reserved the private dining room for Donna and Blake's engagement celebration. I arrived at 7:30, wearing my best Navy suit and the Rolex Submariner the mayor gave me last year for Outstanding Immigrant Entrepreneur. The valet knew me by name. "Evening, Mr. Johnson. Congratulations on your daughter's engagement." "Thank you, Marcus. How's your son doing at community college?" "Really well, sir. Those scholarship recommendations you wrote helped a lot." Donna was already inside, stunning in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She hugged me, but I felt the tension in her shoulders. "Dad, you look great. Remember what we talked about, okay?" Blake approached with his parents. Catherine Morrison wore pearls that looked like they'd been in the family for generations. Blake Sr. had that particular confidence that comes from never worrying about money. "Stefan," Blake Jr. said, too enthusiastically. "Mom, Dad, this is Donna's father, Stefan Johnson." Catherine extended her hand like she was doing me a favor. "How lovely to finally meet you. Blake's told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope." Blake Sr. jumped in. "We understand you're in real estate. How entrepreneurial?" The word hung in the air like an insult wrapped in politeness. Entrepreneurial. Translation: new money, probably questionable methods, definitely not their social class. "I prefer to let my work speak for itself," I said calmly. "And what kind of work is that exactly?" Catherine asked. Blake mentioned something about, what was it, dear? Strip malls? Donna's face went red. This was her nightmare scenario. Her immigrant father being interrogated by the people she desperately wanted to impress. Dad builds commercial properties, Donna said quickly. Nothing too complicated. Nothing too complicated. My own daughter reducing 20 years of work to nothing too complicated. How fascinating, Catherine said, in the tone people use when they mean the opposite. And where are you from originally? I detect just the slightest accent. Here it comes, the moment Donna had been dreading. Eastern Europe, I said simply. Oh, how exotic. And when did you come here? 1991? Well, that's quite a journey. You must be so grateful for the opportunities America has provided. Grateful. As if my success was charity instead of earned. I'm grateful for the freedom to work hard, I replied. Everything else, I built myself. Blake Sr. chuckled. Of course, of course. The American dream and all that. The condescension was thick enough to cut with a knife. They were talking to me like I was their gardener who'd gotten lucky playing the lottery. Donna looked like she wanted to disappear. Dad, why don't you tell them about your consulting work? Consulting work? Now I wasn't even a businessman. I was a consultant. One step away from unemployed in their minds. Actually, I said, I own Johnson Properties. We develop and manage commercial real estate throughout the metro area. How nice, Catherine said, already losing interest. Blake, didn't you say something about appetizers? As we moved toward our table, I overheard Catherine whisper to her husband, Well, he seems harmless enough. At least Donna's beautiful. Harmless enough. Beautiful daughter, despite her unfortunate father. I caught Donna's eye across the table. She was watching my reaction, probably terrified I'd make a scene. But I just smiled and took my seat. Stefan, Blake Sr. said, cutting into his $40 steak, what's your take on the downtown development boom? All those new buildings going up. It's good for the city, I said. More housing, more businesses, more opportunities. Yes, but don't you think it's changing the character of the neighborhood? Some of these new developers have no appreciation for the area's history. No appreciation for history, coming from a man whose family bought their way into society 3 generations ago. I think every building should add value to the community, I said carefully. Good development respects what came before while creating something better. Spoken like a true entrepreneur, Catherine said, using that word again like it tasted sour in her mouth. The evening continued like this. Polite questions that were really judgments, compliments that were actually insults, smiles that never reached their eyes. And through it all, Donna sat quietly, occasionally shooting me warning looks when she thought I might say something too immigrant, too real, too proud of where I came from. I was being patient, but my patience had limits, and they were about to find out what those limits were. As dinner progressed, I started noticing things that should have made the Morrisons more curious about who I really was. First, there was my watch. Catherine had complimented it earlier, and I'd simply said, thank you. But this wasn't just any Rolex. It was a Submariner worth about $12,000, with an engraving on the back. To Stefan Johnson, Outstanding Citizen, Mayor Richardson, 2023. The mayor doesn't give watches to small-time strip mall developers. When Catherine asked about it again, I just smiled. A gift from a grateful business partner. She nodded, assuming it was probably a fake or some cheap corporate award. The second clue came when my phone rang during appetizers. Excuse me, I said, checking the caller ID. I need to take this. I stepped away from the table and answered, Tony, what's going on? Tony Williams has been my attorney and friend for 15 years. He handles all my property acquisitions and lease agreements. Tonight, he was calling about a contract renewal that was due next week. Steve, I've got the Morrison lease agreement here. You said to call if there were any issues? I glanced back at the table where Catherine Morrison was laughing at something Blake had said. No issues, Tony. We'll discuss it Monday. Sure thing. Enjoy your daughter's party. When I returned to the table, Blake Sr. asked politely, Everything all right? You look like a man who handles important calls even on family time. Just business, I said. Nothing urgent. But I saw him exchange a look with his wife. Maybe I wasn't quite the small-timer they'd assumed. The third seed was planted when our waiter brought the wine Blake had ordered, a bottle that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. Mr. Johnson, the waiter said as he poured, I wanted to thank you again for the recommendation letter for my nephew. He got the construction job. A recommendation letter? Catherine asked after the waiter left. I help local kids get started in trades, I explained. Construction, electrical work, plumbing. Good careers for young people who want to work with their hands. What I didn't mention was that I help because I employ over 60 people across my projects. I need skilled workers, and I'd rather train someone local than hire from outside the area. How philanthropic, Blake Sr. said, though he seemed slightly more interested now. The fourth clue came when I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back, I stopped to chat with James Richardson, the club's general manager. We'd worked together on some community development projects. Steve, good to see you. How's the engagement party going? Very well, thanks. How's your daughter liking college? She loves it. That scholarship recommendation really made the difference. She earned it. Smart kid. Catherine Morrison had followed me, apparently also heading to the restroom, and she overheard this conversation. When we walked back to the table together, she was quieter, more thoughtful. The final hint came at the end of dinner, when I pulled out my business card to write down a contractor's number for Blake Jr., who'd mentioned wanting to renovate his apartment. My business card is simple, elegant. Stephen Johnson, CEO, Johnson Properties. Below that, our office address on 5th Street, not the best part of town, but not the worst either, and a phone number with a local area code. Catherine studied the card carefully. Johnson Properties, she said slowly. I feel like I've heard that name before. We've been in business for 12 years, I said. You might have seen our trucks around town. I watched her face as she tried to place the name. She was starting to realize there might be more to me than she'd assumed, but she wasn't there yet. Not until Tony Williams walked through the door with his briefcase would she understand exactly who she'd been talking down to all evening. The moment that changed everything happened during dessert. Donna had been getting more comfortable as the evening progressed, probably relieved that I hadn't embarrassed her yet. The wine had loosened everyone up, and the conversation had moved to wedding planning. We're thinking a June wedding, Donna said, eyes bright with excitement. Something elegant, but not too over the top. June is perfect, Catherine said. Of course you'll want to book the venue soon. The best places fill up a year in advance. Blake Sr. leaned forward. We'd be happy to help with recommendations. We know all the best venues in the city. This was exactly what Donna wanted. Acceptance into their world, their connections, their approval. That's so generous, Donna said. Dad's been amazing about the budget, but I know you have much better taste than we do. Much better taste than we do. Another little cut, delivered with a smile. Well, Catherine said, we do have some experience with these things. Blake's sister had her wedding at the Pemberton estate. Absolutely gorgeous venue, though quite exclusive. Exclusive how? I asked. They're very particular about the type of events they host. Old family connections, that sort of thing. The type of events. Translation. No immigrants, no new money, no people like you. Donna jumped in quickly. Maybe we should look at some other options first. Get a feel for what's available. Nonsense, Blake Sr. said. Catherine can make a call. She's on the board at Pemberton. I watched Donna's face light up. This was her dream, marrying into a family with enough influence to get her into venues she could never access on her own. That would be incredible, Donna said. Then, looking at me, if Dad's okay with it, of course. All eyes turned to me. This was my cue to be grateful, to thank the Morrisons for their generous offer to help plan my daughter's wedding. Instead, I asked a simple question. What makes you think we need your connections? The table went quiet. Catherine laughed nervously. Oh, I didn't mean anything by it. It's just that these venues can be challenging to book without the right introductions. The right introductions to what? Blake Sr. shifted uncomfortably. Stephen, Catherine's just trying to help. These old money venues can be a bit snobbish about new members of the community. New members of the community. There it was. The polite way of saying, people like you don't belong here. Donna was shooting me warning looks, but I was past caring. And you assume I'm a new member? Why, exactly? Catherine set down her wine glass. Well, I mean, you said you came here in 1991. That's recent. Recent compared to what? Stephen, Blake Jr. tried to intervene. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said calmly. I'm just curious about the assumptions being made. Catherine's composure was cracking. I'm sorry if I've offended you. I simply meant that some of these venues prefer families with established histories in the area. Established histories? I see. Donna couldn't take it anymore. She leaned toward me, voice low but urgent. Dad, please, can we just drop this? But Catherine wasn't done. The wine and her own discomfort had loosened her tongue. Look, Stefan, I'm sure you've worked very hard to get where you are. America is wonderful that way. Anyone can succeed with enough effort. But you have to understand there are still some social traditions, some places where heritage matters. Heritage matters. From a woman whose great-grandfather bought his way into society with railroad money. What kind of heritage are we talking about? I asked. Oh, you know, old families, established roots, people who've been part of the community for generations. Donna's face was burning red. This was her worst nightmare. Her immigrant father being told he doesn't belong, in front of the people she wanted to impress. Dad, she said quietly, maybe we should talk about this later. But I wasn't done. So, to be clear, Catherine, you're saying that some venues won't accept families like mine because we haven't been here long enough? It's not personal, Catherine said, digging deeper. It's just tradition. These establishments have certain standards. Standards. The word hit like a slap. Donna snapped. I'm so sorry about Dad's accent, she said suddenly, voice high and desperate. He never quite, assimilated properly. The table went dead silent. Never quite assimilated properly. My own daughter, apologizing for my existence. Donna, Blake Jr. said quietly, you don't need to. No, it's fine, Donna continued, the words tumbling out. I know it's embarrassing. I've tried to help him with it, but some things just stick, the old country habits. Old country habits. Like the habit of working 16-hour days to pay for her Yale education. It's really not a problem, Catherine said, but she looked uncomfortable now, realizing Donna had crossed a line. I looked at my daughter, this beautiful, educated, privileged young woman who was so desperate to fit in that she'd throw her own father under the bus, and felt something break inside my chest. Not break with anger, break with disappointment. I set down my napkin and stood up. Excuse me, I said quietly. I need to make a phone call. Donna grabbed my arm. Dad, please don't make a scene. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then at her face. Panic, embarrassment, desperation. I'm not making a scene, Donna. I'm making a phone call. I walked to the lobby and pulled out my phone. Tony, it's Steve. Are you still at the office? Good. I need you to bring something to the club. Yes, tonight. Bring the Morrison file. 20 minutes later, Tony Williams walked into the Riverside Country Club carrying his leather briefcase and wearing the same expression he used for closing major deals. I'd known Tony for 15 years, since I bought my first rental property. He's handled every lease agreement, every acquisition, every legal document for Johnson Properties. I met him in the lobby. Steve, what's going on? You sounded strange on the phone. I need you to meet some people, I said. The Morrison family. They're my daughter's future in-laws. Tony's eyebrows went up. The Morrisons? From the downtown penthouse? That's them. Interesting. Should I bring the lease file? Already in your briefcase, isn't it? Tony patted his case and smiled. Always prepared. Steve, what exactly are you planning? Nothing dramatic, just a little clarification about relationships. When we walked back into the private dining room, the conversation stopped. Donna looked relieved to see me return, probably hoping I'd calm down. The Morrisons were making polite small talk, but the tension was obvious. Everyone, I said, I'd like you to meet Tony Williams. He's my attorney and business partner. Tony stepped forward with his professional smile. Pleasure to meet you all. I apologize for interrupting your celebration. Not at all, Blake Sr. said, standing to shake hands. Any friend of Stefan's is welcome. Actually, Tony said, Mr. Johnson and I have been business associates for quite some time. I handle all the legal affairs for Johnson Properties. Catherine perked up. Johnson Properties? That name does sound familiar. It should, Tony said, setting his briefcase on an empty chair. We manage most of the commercial real estate in the downtown corridor. I watched Blake Sr.'s face carefully. Something was clicking. Tony, I said, would you mind showing everyone that lease agreement we discussed? The one that's up for renewal next week? Tony's smile widened. He understood exactly what I was doing. Of course. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. Let's see. Here we are. The Morrison lease agreement. The color drained from Catherine Morrison's face. I'm sorry, she said slowly. Did you say Morrison lease agreement? Yes, ma'am. For the penthouse at 645 Oak Street. Beautiful property, one of our finest units. Blake Jr. looked confused. I don't understand. What lease agreement? Tony pulled out the official document and set it on the table where everyone could see the letterhead. Johnson Properties, LLC. Your parents have been exemplary tenants, Tony continued professionally. Monthly rent of $4,800, always paid on time. The lease runs through December 31st of this year. Dead silence. Donna was staring at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Catherine Morrison's voice came out as a whisper. You're our landlord? I prefer property owner, I said calmly. But yes, Catherine, I own the building you live in. Blake Sr. was studying the lease agreement, his face going through a series of expressions. Confusion, recognition, embarrassment, and finally something that might have been panic. This is impossible, Catherine said. We lease from Morrison Holdings. Blake handles all our property arrangements. Blake Sr. cleared his throat. Actually, honey, Morrison Holdings subleases several properties. We don't own everything directly. But you never mentioned, because it wasn't relevant. Tony was enjoying this. Mr. Johnson purchased that building in 2015. It's one of 12 properties in his downtown portfolio, prime real estate. Donna finally found her voice. Dad, what is happening? What's happening, Donna, is that the people you've been desperate to impress have been paying me rent for 8 years. Catherine Morrison looked like she might faint. 8 years? Since October 2010, Tony confirmed, flipping through the file. Let's see. That's approximately $460,000 in total rent payments, always on time, I might add. Blake Jr. was doing the math in his head, probably calculating exactly how much money his family had paid to the man they'd been treating like hired help all evening. Mr. Johnson, Catherine said carefully, I had no idea. Blake Sr. handles all our real estate arrangements. If you'd known what? I asked quietly. If you'd known I was your landlord, would you have treated me differently tonight? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Donna was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Dad, you own their building? I own 12 buildings in the downtown area, Donna. Their building generates more than $20,000 in monthly rent from all units. The Morrison penthouse is just one source of income. Tony was pulling more documents from his briefcase. Mr. Johnson, should I show them the property portfolio summary? Why not? He spread several documents on the table. Property deeds, tax assessments, recent appraisals. The numbers were impossible to ignore. Johnson Properties wasn't some small-time operation. It was a multi-million-dollar real estate company. Blake Sr. was studying the documents with the expression of a man who realized he'd made a terrible miscalculation. The downtown Morrison building, Tony continued, is appraised at $800,000. Mr. Johnson purchased it for $420,000 in 2015. Excellent investment. Catherine Morrison was gripping her wine glass so hard I thought it might break. I don't understand. How did we not know? Because your husband handles the rent payments to Morrison Holdings, I explained. Morrison Holdings subleases from Johnson Properties. Perfectly legal, very common arrangement. Blake Sr.'s face was red. Stefan, I had no idea the properties trace back to you personally. Really? Because Tony sends renewal notices directly to Morrison Holdings every year, with my company name clearly printed on the letterhead. Donna was looking back and forth between me and the Morrisons like she was watching a tennis match. So, I continued, when you said earlier that I wouldn't understand venues with heritage requirements, you were talking about heritage to the daughter of your landlord. Catherine Morrison set down her wine glass carefully. Stefan, please let me apologize. And when you suggested I needed your connections to access exclusive venues, you were talking to the man who owns the building you call home. Blake Jr. was shaking his head slowly. Mr. Johnson, we had no idea about any of this. That's the interesting thing about assumptions, I said. They can make you look foolish very quickly. Tony closed his briefcase with a satisfied snap. Well, I should let you all get back to your celebration. Mr. Johnson, the lease renewal paperwork will be ready for your review Monday morning. As he prepared to leave, Catherine Morrison found her voice again. Mr. Johnson, please. There's obviously been a terrible misunderstanding tonight. I looked at her, then at my daughter, who was still staring at the lease documents. The only misunderstanding, Catherine, was thinking that respect is earned through heritage instead of character. Tony shook hands with everyone politely and left. The table sat in complete silence for nearly a minute. Finally, Donna whispered, "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what, Donna? That I'm successful? That I built something significant? Or just that I'm not the embarrassment you thought I was?" That's when I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. It was time for the real lesson to begin. I set my phone on the table where everyone could see the screen. "Donna, do you recognize this account number?" She leaned forward, squinting at the display. Her face went pale as she read the details. "Recurring transfer, Donna Johnson, $8,200 monthly." "That's your allowance?" I said calmly. $8,200 transferred to your checking account every 15th of the month for the past 4 years. Blake Jr. whistled softly. $8,000 a month?" Donna shot him a look. "Blake, don't—" "No, it's fine," I continued. "Let's talk numbers. Tony, did you bring the summary I asked for?" Tony, who had been quietly watching from near the door, returned to the table and pulled out a single sheet of paper from his briefcase. "Total financial support for Donna Johnson over the past 4 years," he read aloud. "Monthly allowance, $394,400. Yale University tuition and expenses, $280,000. BMW purchase, $45,000. Various gifts, emergency funds, and travel expenses, approximately $60,000. Catherine Morrison was calculating in her head, her eyes growing wider. Total investment in Donna's lifestyle and education, $779,400, Tony concluded. The silence was deafening. "And what did I ask for in return?" I looked directly at Donna. Not gratitude, not public acknowledgement, just basic respect for the family that made all of this possible. Donna's voice was barely a whisper. "Dad, Instead," I continued, tapping the banking app, "tonight I listened to my daughter apologize for my accent. I heard her explain that I never quite assimilated properly. I watched her beg me not to embarrass her in front of people who have been paying me rent for 8 years. I clicked on the recurring transfer settings. So I'm making some changes." My finger hovered over the cancel recurring transfer button. "Dad, wait," Donna said, panic creeping into her voice. "Let's talk about this. I was nervous tonight. I said things I didn't mean." "You said exactly what you meant, Donna. You're ashamed of where you come from." I clicked cancel. The screen updated. "Recurring transfer canceled successfully." Donna stared at the phone like it was a bomb that had just gone off. "That's your allowance, effective immediately," I said. "Gone." "Dad, you can't be serious." "Tony, what about the condo down payment?" Tony consulted his notes. $180,000, pre-approved wire transfer for closing on July 1st. I pulled up my wire transfer app, found the pre-authorized payment, clicked cancel. "Dad, no!" Donna stood up so fast her chair nearly fell over. "Blake and I have been planning this for months. We've already signed the purchase agreement." "Then you better figure out another way to pay for it." Blake Sr. was watching this unfold with the expression of a man witnessing a car accident. "Stefan, perhaps we should all take a step back. And Tony," I continued, ignoring him, "what about that job interview we scheduled for Donna at Johnson Properties? Next Monday at 10 a.m., entry-level development associate position." I looked at Donna. "That interview is canceled, too." "You can't do this." Donna's voice was getting louder, drawing looks from other diners in the club. "I need that job. I need the allowance. How am I supposed to live?" "The same way I lived when I came here with $200 in a dream," I said quietly. "You figure it out." Catherine Morrison finally found her voice. "Mr. Johnson, surely we can resolve this misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding, Catherine. Your future daughter-in-law just learned that actions have consequences." Blake Jr. was looking back and forth between Donna and me like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Donna, you get $8,000 a month from your dad?" Donna rounded on him. "That's not the point, Blake." "Actually, that's exactly the point," I said, standing up. "The point is that my daughter has been living off money earned by a man she's ashamed to claim as family." I pulled out my wallet and placed $300 on the table. "That covers my portion of dinner tonight. Donna, from now on, you pay your own way." Donna grabbed my arm as I started to leave. "Dad, please." I'm sorry. I was wrong. Wrong tonight. I know I was wrong. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, the same hand that had grabbed me earlier when she begged me not to make a scene. Donna, being sorry isn't enough anymore. You need to decide who you are. Are you the daughter of Stefan Stefanovich, who came to this country with nothing and built something meaningful? Or are you Donna Morrison-to-be, who's embarrassed by her immigrant father? I gently removed her hand from my arm. When you figure that out, we can talk, but not before. Blake Sr. stood up. Stefan, let's not make any hasty decisions. Family is important. You're absolutely right, Blake. Family is important. That's why I'm teaching my daughter what family loyalty actually means. I turned to Catherine Morrison. Your lease renewal is due December 31st. Tony will be in touch about the new terms. The threat was subtle but clear. Respect wasn't optional anymore. And Blake, I said to Donna's fiancé, you might want to have a conversation with your parents about how they've been funding their lifestyle. Some of those rent payments have been pretty steep over the years. I picked up my phone and showed Donna the banking app one more time. $0.00, I said. That's your allowance balance. If you want it back, you earn it back. But you'll never earn it back by being ashamed of who raised you. Donna was crying now, but I couldn't tell if it was from genuine remorse or panic about her financial situation. How am I supposed to pay rent? She asked desperately. My car payment? Insurance? I don't know, Donna. But I have complete confidence that the Yale-educated daughter of an immigrant entrepreneur will figure something out. I looked around the table one final time at Catherine Morrison, who was still processing that her inferior immigrant neighbor was actually her landlord, at Blake Sr., who was probably calculating how much respect he should have been showing all along, at Blake Jr., who was discovering that his fiancée had been living a completely subsidized lifestyle, and at Donna, whose perfect world had just collapsed around her designer shoes. Enjoy the rest of your evening, I said politely. And Donna, when you're ready to have a real conversation about respect and family, you know my number. I walked out of the Riverside Country Club with my head held high, leaving behind a table of people who finally understood exactly who they'd been dealing with all along. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7 a.m. The first call was from Donna. I let it go to voicemail. Dad, please call me back. I know you're angry, but we need to talk. My rent is due in 5 days, and I don't have the money. Please, I'm sorry about last night. I was stupid and wrong, and I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. The second call came an hour later. Also Donna. Dad, I went to the bank this morning. They said my account shows a negative balance because some automatic payments went through. My credit card got declined at the grocery store. People are staring at me. Please, just call me back. The third call was from Blake Jr. Mr. Johnson, this is Blake Morrison. Could we please meet for coffee? There are some things about last night that I think we should discuss. I decided to take that one. We met at a small cafe downtown, 2 blocks from my office. Blake arrived looking like he hadn't slept much. Mr. Johnson, thank you for agreeing to see me. What's on your mind, Blake? He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I need to know if what happened last night affects Donna and my relationship. That's between you and Donna. But, sir, I had no idea about any of it. The allowance, your business, my parents being your tenants. Donna never told me she was getting $8,000 a month from you. What did you think was paying for her lifestyle? Blake stared into his coffee. I assumed she had a trust fund, maybe inheritance from grandparents, her apartment, her car, the way she spends money. I thought her family was wealthy. Her family is wealthy, Blake. The question is whether she's grateful for that or ashamed of how we got there. She talks about you like she loves you, but she makes it sound like you're just getting by. Small business, working class background. I had no idea you owned half the buildings downtown. I studied Blake's face. He seemed genuinely confused, not malicious. What exactly did Donna tell you about me? She said you immigrated from Eastern Europe, started a small construction business, worked your way up to owning some rental properties. She made it sound like you were comfortable but not successful, if that makes sense. And what did you think about that? Blake looked embarrassed. Honestly, I thought it was nice that she was marrying down like she was choosing love over money. He paused. Turns out she wasn't marrying down at all. My phone buzzed with a text from Donna. Dad, my landlord is threatening eviction. The rent was supposed to autopay from my account, but there's no money. Please help me. I showed Blake the message. She's never had to manage money before, he said quietly. No, she hasn't. And that's my fault for making everything too easy. Blake leaned forward. Mr. Johnson, what would it take for you to forgive her? I don't need to forgive her, Blake. I need her to understand why respect matters. My phone rang again. This time it was Tony Williams. Steve, you're not going to believe this. Catherine Morrison just called my office. About the lease renewal? About you. She wants to know your terms for continuing their tenancy. She's convinced you're going to evict them in retaliation for last night. I had to laugh. What did you tell her? That business is business. Their lease doesn't expire until December, and as long as they pay rent on time, they have nothing to worry about. But Steve, she sounded genuinely panicked. Good. A little panic builds character. After I hung up, Blake asked, Are you really going to evict my parents? Blake, I'm a businessman, not a vindictive teenager. As long as they pay their rent, they can stay. But they're going to pay at a market rate when the lease renews. Market rate? Currently, they pay $4,800 a month for a penthouse that comparable units rent for $6,500. They've been getting a family discount for years without realizing it. Blake's eyes widened. A $1,700 monthly discount? More than $20,000 a year in savings. From the immigrant they thought was beneath them. That afternoon, I got a call from Donna's landlord, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Johnson, I'm sorry to bother you, but your daughter listed you as her emergency contact. Her rent check bounced this morning, and when I called her, she started crying and hung up on me. How much does she owe? $3,000 for this month, plus a $50 NSF fee. Donna was learning fast that life without a safety net felt very different. That evening, Blake Sr. called. Stefan, I owe you an enormous apology. You don't owe me anything, Blake. You just owe me respect going forward. I've been thinking about last night, and I realize how condescending we must have sounded. Catherine feels terrible. Catherine should feel terrible. So should you. Is there anything we can do to make this right? You can treat me like the business equal I've always been. Nothing more, nothing less. And Donna? Donna needs to figure out who she wants to be. The real surprise came on Sunday. I was in my office, catching up on paperwork, when Donna walked in. She looked different. Her usual designer outfit was replaced by jeans and a simple sweater. No makeup, hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more like the daughter I remembered from high school. Dad, we need to talk. I'm listening. She sat down across from my desk and pulled out a piece of paper. I made a list, she said. Everything I can remember you doing for me. Everything I never said thank you for. The paper was covered in her handwriting, front and back. Yale tuition, the BMW, my apartment deposit. That time I got sick in my sophomore year and you flew to Connecticut to take care of me. The allowance, the credit cards, the job interview you set up, the vacation to Europe for graduation. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Dad, this list is 3 pages long, and I know I'm forgetting things. How did I become someone who was embarrassed by the person who gave me everything? For the first time since Friday night, I felt something soften in my chest. Tell me, I said quietly. I got scared, she admitted. Blake's family has this presence, this confidence that comes from never worrying about money. I wanted to fit in so badly that I convinced myself our story wasn't good enough, that your accent made us look less than. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But Dad, your accent doesn't make us look poor. It makes us look like survivors. I leaned back in my chair, studying my daughter's face. What do you want from me, Donna? A chance to earn back your respect, she said simply. And maybe, if I can prove I've learned something, a chance to earn back your support. What does that look like? She took a deep breath. I want the job interview at Johnson Properties. Not because I need the money, but because I want to learn the business that built our family. And the allowance? I want to earn it back. Whatever you think is appropriate, based on how hard I work and how much respect I show. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Humility, determination, and maybe, just maybe, pride in where she came from. We'll start with the interview, I said finally. Monday at 10 a.m. But Donna, this isn't charity. You'll work for everything you get. I understand. And you'll learn about our family history. All of it. The refugee camp, the first job, the nights I slept in my truck. Everything you've been too embarrassed to ask about. I want to know everything. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old photo. Me at 21, standing in front of my first construction job, wearing borrowed tools and a smile full of hope. This is where our story begins, I said, handing her the picture. If you're going to be part of this family business, you need to understand what built it. Donna stared at the photo for a long moment. Dad, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Monday at 10, I repeated. Don't be late. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my office reviewing monthly reports when Donna knocked on my door. Come in. She entered carrying a stack of lease agreements and looking tired but focused. For the past 3 weeks, she'd been working as an unpaid intern at Johnson Properties, learning the business from the ground up. I finished reviewing the Morrison Building tenant files, she said, setting the paperwork on my desk. I found some interesting things. Such as? The Morrison family has been consistently late on their rent payments for the past 6 months. Never more than 5 days, but late enough to trigger penalty clauses they haven't been charged for. I raised an eyebrow. Donna had been digging deeper into the business than I'd expected. How much in uncollected penalties? Approximately $1,200. Also, their lease allows for annual rent increases tied to the Consumer Price Index, but we haven't implemented any increases since 2019. And? If we'd been following the lease terms strictly, their current rent should be $5,400 per month, not $4,800. Donna was learning to think like a businesswoman instead of just thinking like someone who needed her problem solved. What's your recommendation? She sat down across from my desk, pulling out a notebook where she'd written detailed notes. I think we should honor the existing lease terms through December, but implement the new market rate for the renewal. $6,500 per month, standard terms, no family discounts. And the uncollected penalties? Forgive them. It sends a message that we're fair but professional going forward. I leaned back in my chair, impressed despite myself. Donna, 3 weeks ago you didn't know the difference between gross and net rent. Now you're making strategic recommendations about tenant relations. I've been studying, she said simply. Every night. Real estate law, property management, market analysis. I want to understand what you built. My phone buzzed with a text from Blake Jr. Mr. Johnson, Donna and I would like to invite you to dinner this Friday. Our treat. We have something we'd like to discuss. I showed Donna the message. Blake's been learning some things too, she said, about respect, about assumptions, about what it means to actually earn something. How so? He got a job, sales associate at a furniture store. He's never worked retail before, never had to deal with difficult customers or live on commission. It's been educational. And how are things between you two? Donna was quiet for a moment. Different. Better, I think. We're both learning what it's like when someone else isn't paying for everything. She pulled out her phone and showed me a banking app. My checking account balance, $43.18. How does that feel? Terrifying, she admitted, but also real. For the first time in my life, I understand what money actually means, what it costs to earn it. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a document I'd been preparing. Donna, I've been thinking about our family's future, about the business, about what happens next. She looked nervous. I'm offering you a position, full-time development associate, starting salary, $45,000 annually, health insurance, 2 weeks vacation, standard benefits. Her eyes widened. Dad, that's less than half my old allowance. It's what the position pays. If you want more money, you earn promotions. As she stared at the offer letter for a long moment. What about the allowance? Is there any chance? Donna, the allowance is gone forever. You're 26 years old. It's time to build your own financial foundation. I could see her doing calculations in her head. Rent, car payment, food, utilities, all the expenses she'd never had to think about before. $45,000, she said slowly. That's going to be tight. Then you better be good at your job. She looked up at me, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. Dad, I accept, and I promise you won't regret giving me this chance. There are conditions. Okay. I pulled out another document, a contract I'd had Tony Williams draft. These are our new family boundaries, professional relationship guidelines. You can read them over, but the basics are, you represent Johnson Properties professionally at all times. You never again apologize for our family history. You learn our immigration story completely, and you're proud of it. And if you ever again choose social acceptance over family loyalty, this job ends immediately. Donna took the contract and read through it carefully. Dad, there's a clause here about Blake's family. Read it aloud. Employee agrees to maintain respectful but professional relationships with all tenants of Johnson Properties, including the Morrison family, without compromising business interests or personal integrity. That means you can marry Blake if you want, but his parents are our tenants first and your in-laws second. Business comes first. And if they can't accept that, then you choose. But you don't get to choose both the business benefits and the social benefits without earning both. Donna signed the contract without hesitation. One more thing, I said, opening my desk drawer again. I pulled out the old photograph of me at my first construction job and handed it to her. This stays on your desk, as a reminder of where we came from. She took the photo and studied it carefully. Dad, will you tell me the whole story? From the beginning? The refugee camp, the first jobs? Everything? Every detail, I promised. But Donna, it's not just my story anymore. You're writing the next chapter. She stood up, contract and photo in hand. I won't let you down. I know you won't, because now you understand what you have to lose. As she reached the door, she turned back. Dad, thank you for the job, for the lesson, for not giving up on me. Donna, that's what family does. We don't give up on each other. We just make sure we deserve each other's respect. After she left, I pulled up my banking app and looked at the canceled recurring transfer. $8,200 that would stay in Johnson Properties accounts, helping to build something bigger than any individual allowance. My daughter was going to earn every dollar she made from now on, and she was going to be stronger for it. If you've made it this far in my story, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to teach someone in your family about respect and boundaries? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from.